number of these Republican governors who have signed into law, people who so-called believe in small government, who believe in personal responsibility, who believe that people should make their own choices. They literally are tying the hands of officials. I mean, to threaten to revoke school funding from schools in order because of a mask mandate. In fact, that was an emergency hearing today where they want to provide emergency opportunity scholarships for people who want to pull their kids out of public schools where they have mask mandates to enroll them into private schools. In Tennessee, they're threatening to pull the funding of school districts that put into place mask mandates. They're trying to literally save lives.
Yeah. This is what I've been talking about, the danger of this post-truth, post-factual, post-science society that we're living in, where we aren't making public health decisions based on science, based on saving people, based on not overwhelming the healthcare system. We're making them, or not we, but Republicans more specifically, are making these decisions to score cool points with, people on Fox News and with their base who has an appetite for destruction, who has an appetite for defiance, who has an appetite for, sticking it to the Democrats and big government, and it's to their detriment. And I think one of the reasons why they're getting away with this is because at the beginning of the pandemic, it was kind of presented as a black and brown issue. Oh, it's only black and brown people that are dying. For some reason, they don't care about grandma, great-grandma, and grandpa dying. And so they're saying, well, if some older people have to die, that's fine too. But as Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton just pointed out, and you pointed out, this is impacting kids younger and younger. And as a mother of a 4-month-old, I'm absolutely terrified of something happening to her. I mean, I'm vaccinated. Everybody around me is fully vaccinated. She likely has some protection through the breast milk, but I could not fathom the idea of putting her at risk. And so the idea of sending kids to school without masks, it's just incredibly troubling and disturbing. And it just seems like they don't have a problem signing a death warrant. And I don't know if it's as much hubris or delusion, but either way, it's equally dangerous. And so this goes back to what I've been saying and what we always say on the show: elections matter. Elections have consequences. And people in these red states, they don't deserve to have their death warrant signed. They don't deserve what they're being subjected to. But that's the government that they voted for. And so I'm hoping that there will be some sanity in the courts, that there will be some lawsuits to try to challenge some of these mask mandates. We've seen where the vaccine mandates have basically been upheld by the courts. And it'll be interesting to see how these banning the mask mandates would hold up in the courts, if the same logic would hold. But it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And to think that some people are choosing to sign up for this danger is even more mind-blowing. So we have to try to tackle this disinformation in this post-science society that we're living in. And the one last thing I would say is, it's so troubling to know that it's not even about trying to contain the disease anymore, contain the pandemic and the spread. It's just basically saying you're on your own. If you don't get vaccinated, you're shit out of luck. And we know that kids can't get the vaccine, but hey, we'll figure it out. We're gonna, and I'm scared to see what kind of death toll and destruction we have to see from kids, because we know from the Sandy Hook shooting, there's an incredibly high appetite for children's deaths in this country. And I'm just very afraid to see how many kids are going to have to die or get long COVID or be in the hospital before people say enough is enough.
Roger, we talk about, again, impact. We often have said on this show that the vaccine is done at 100%. It doesn't completely ward you off. There are variants, how Delta. They are in Jackson, Mississippi. They're mourning the death of the sheriff in Hinds County, Lee Vance, 63 years old. Apparently there was he was fully vaccinated. Apparently there was a outbreak of COVID in the county jail. He was at home for quarantining, and he died this week. And the thing so you have that example, but really what I think what is really just confusing me are the people who are not listening to children's experts. People who are not listening to these doctors who specialize in children. I'm looking on Cleavon's Twitter account, and he had posted a particular video where a hospital official in Arkansas said that they had experienced a 690% increase in children impacted. But what also caught me was this here. 42-year-old John Ayers from Southport, England, died from COVID. Quote, he was the healthiest person I know. He thought if he contracted COVID, he'd be okay and have a mild illness. He didn't want to put a vaccine in his body, said his twin sister. Now, this is his photo. That's what he looks like. This is him in the hospital. Now, look, this was a very muscular, healthy dude. You know, for the life of me, I don't get these people who don't realize what's happening with our children.
Well, I think it's a few things, and I think that once you start looking at, you know, vaccinating adolescents, there has to be a much bigger and deeper conversation because you're talking about children. One of the big concerns that I've been reading about and hearing about, Brother Roland, is the fact that out of the Children's Health Defense, this is a activist group founded by the attorney Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Who
is actually one of the biggest spreaders of disinformation on the vaccine.
Well, I mean, he brings up a point. I think we should, and I'm saying this is why we have the conversation. But
look, there's a conversation. There's a conversation, and then there are people who are deliberately sending out misinformation, and he's one of those people.
Yeah, okay, and targeting our community specifically.
Well,
with flyers.
Okay, fine. If we don't want to acknowledge him, but let's look at the fact that if you're talking about having children, and I have two children, I have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. So when we're talking about having children, we're talking about informed consent. We're talking about what is going to be the impact of the vaccine on their evolving bodies. We're talking about a whole lot of things. This cannot be just a simple rollout. This is not a PR campaign. This is my future. This is Reese's future. This is anyone that has children or caretakers of children. This is your future. So we can't have a big conversation about vaccinations, an experimental vaccination at that hasn't been fully approved, and it won't be at least until until September, excuse me, until we understand the whole, at least get the whole picture. I think one of the big parts about this whole process, Brother Roland, Reese, and Dr. Carr, is the fact that there has been a campaign of everything from fear to coercion to intimidation. Now it's just all out federal workers, you're mandated or you lose your job.
But here's the deal, though. I'll be honest with you. I'm scared of death. You damn right. I mean, and I want to show this. And I want to show this. I want to show this. I want to show this.
Nobody wants to die.
I want to show this. Dr. Jose Romero, who is the pediatric infectious disease specialist at Arkansas Children's Hospital, this is what he said. Among children less than 18 years of age who were hospitalized in July, 58% were less than 12 years of age. Listen to this. I'm going to take it back. Just hold on one second.
Among children less than 18 years of age who are hospitalized in July, 58% were less than 12 years of age. I think these numbers exemplify and bring out a very sobering aspect of the pandemic in our state. We have a group of individuals that are extremely susceptible to infection because they do not have eligibility for a vaccine. Among children less than 18 years of age who are hospitalized in July.
So I'm going to pull you in here, Greg. So this is the conundrum that we're in. We are literally seeing children's ICUs filled to capacity in many of these southern states. They are calling around neighboring states. They're saying, we have no room for your children.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to take the vaccine for whatever reason, isolate. Don't have any human contact. If you've already taken it, save yourself. Wear your mask, protect yourself. If you got friends or loved ones who you're not going to take the vaccine, listen to them, ask them why, try to reason with them from a distance. And if you can't get through, cut them completely off. And as for this white nationalist Stoop Olympics, and it does look like the governor of Florida is going for the gold medal, which would be the nomination for his party, the White Nationalist Party, for the 2024 presidential cycle. You know, whatever happens to y'all happens to y'all. I'm gonna keep saying this until somebody understands it. There is no we in this country. There's no national soul. There's no national sentiment. There's only people living in the same landmass with various perspectives. That white woman in Arkansas that went viral the other day for her tortured biblical interpretation of why God doesn't want her to put the needle in her arm, I wish her well. I won't encounter her in the store. I will not encounter her on the floor. I will not encounter her anywhere in the world. And if you want to die, you go right ahead, because in order to get sick, you have to be alive. Let's not forget that. Meanwhile, the continent of Africa, about 1% rate. The countries in the world that have been rendered poor through structural capitalism, for every 100 people, they've got access to about a dose and a half, as opposed to people in the United States and in the global north who have, for every 100 people, access to 50 doses. And the cover of today's Financial Times talked about the fact that Moderna, which I took, and Pfizer have gone up on the price of their vaccine. They just unloaded $2.1 billion to the EU bloc, and they are actually charging more now for their doses. Capitalism was about to kick in. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about this housing crisis, but those at the very top, they could give a damn about any of us. And if you want to value your whiteness over your life, and you watch that cosplay on Fox between Ducey and Kilmeade, and you decide you're not going to stick that needle in your arm, God bless you. Your God bless you. I'm not getting anywhere close to you. And those of you who are essential workers, who have never stopped working over the last year and a half, who have to deliver the mail and bag the groceries and drop off the Amazon packages and do the DoorDash and drive the Ubers, put 3 masks on, because these damn hillbillies are going to kill themselves, and they're going to drag some of us with them. Don't let it be you.
Roger, you talked about some of the requirements that people are making. CNN announced that there were 3 employees who came into the office multiple times and were unvaccinated, breaking their protocols. They were fired. There are other companies who are now making those requirements. I have made the exact same thing. Employers can't just think about an individual; they had to think about all the employees, and I totally get companies that are saying, if you don't get vaccinated, you may not have a job.
Well, I mean, if you're going to make that, and we have to look at the slippery slope that type of demand will possibly make. The president said on July 27th that the pandemic is continuing, essentially because he calls this the pandemic of the unvaccinated. I mean, that is absolutely insane, because this pandemic was happening before vaccines even came about. So the pandemic of the unvaccinated, to create that narrative, to which adds to the growing tension around vaccinations and those who are vaccinated, you're creating a war. And when you're talking about, if this gets to the point, Brother Roland, Dr. Carr and Reese, if we're getting to the point now that we're going to make vaccinations mandatory, you're going to have a real revolution in this country.
And guess what?
You're going to see, I'm not just talking about from black folks, I'm talking about, let me just case in point. And I think that we should all kind of talk about this a little bit more, but the USA Today, they put out this piece just a couple of days ago where they looked at this question of whether your personal freedom, what's the end of your personal freedom when you're deciding to do something for yourself, and what's the start of doing something for the common good? And as Americans, they said this, the COVID culture point, at what point should personal freedom yield to the common good? What is the common good? Now, is the common good saving lives? Absolutely. I don't think anybody wants to just check out of here, but the common good, based upon what we're seeing a healthcare companies that are reaping rich off of this vaccine. We're seeing the conflicting messages coming from the CDC. 70+% of the American people said that they have lost trust in the CDC and other agencies because of the conflicting messages. So what is considered to be the common good and what is considered to be personal freedom? We're not having certain conversations. We're not giving people a chance to really think about their decision making. It's just take this, take this, take this, do this, do this, do this.
No, they actually,
and at the same time, not giving people quote unquote personal choice.
No, they are getting personal choice. But here's the deal, though. It's also my personal choice to employ you. Here's the thing I think a lot of people really forget. And that is, when Greg said it, if you don't want to take the vaccine, fine, self-isolate. But the deal though is, if decisions that a decision begets another decision. And if somebody says, I am not going to take the vaccination, cool. There are things that are going to come with that you may not like. Now, if they want to say, well, you shouldn't be firing me. I mean, there are hospital workers right now who are angry and upset because hospitals have said, y'all gotta get vaccinated. And the hospital said, and if you don't, you lose your job. Now they yelling and cussing and fussing, but the hospital is saying, we are a hospital. we can't have you. And here's the other deal. How many of us have actually, of the four of us sitting here, how many of us have gone to the continent of Africa?
I'd be there right now.
I wish I could. I wish I haven't yet.
How many? And Greg, you've been. I've been. Reaching, did you raise your hand?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Didn't we all have to take a series of shots before we stood on? We for all of our personal freedom.
That's right.
We had to take a series of shots before we could even get on that plane. And if we landed. And they showed our papers, and they were like,
nope.
No shots? Hop your ass back on that plane, go back to where you came from. Am I right, Greg?
That's right, brother.
But here's the thing, though, Brother Roland. Does this country have the mechanisms, the infrastructure in place to protect the citizens who may not be of the same mindset? Are we, and I'm asking, because like, for example,
hold on, when you say protect them, how? No. What? Quarantine them under armed house arrest?
What happens on the other side? So, okay, fine. You tell
what happens on the other side is we have funerals.
What happens? Then what happens? How do you protect those citizens? You just leave them to die? How do you ensure the rights of those citizens?
No, but Faraji, that's the problem right now. The problem right now is, and I can show you, there are people who right now who did not want to take the vaccine, and they literally right now are making deathbed videos saying, what the hell was I thinking? They are pleading with people. So you just ask, how do you protect them? They are protecting them. They literally are hospitalized right now. The problem is our hospitals are being filled. And
the reason, and Brother Roland, just real quick, dear brother, the reason that they're being filled is not necessarily because folks decided not to take the vaccination. We don't know, one, what the medical history of those individuals. Two, did they really wear the mask and do the social distancing? I'm all for that. So did they take the proper precautions?
I'll show you this here. Travis Campbell, 43, from Bristol, Virginia, has been hospitalized more than a week due to the Delta variant, which also infected his wife and 2 children. The unvaccinated man is adamant about making videos encouraging others to get vaccinated now. Here's the video.
This place was basically empty with COVID last week, but now it's full. So it is growing and it is getting stronger. Hate to hear, lost a couple acquaintances in the past 24 to 36 hours. COVID, this Delta strain something else. I would ask you, if you thought that you had to sit down and plan your goodbyes and funerals, or go get the COVID vaccine, what would you do? I'd hope to God that all my friends and family would not say, somebody hand me a piece of paper and a pen. That's a sobering thought, of which I have.
Reese,
No, brother.
I mean, I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
No. All I was going to say is, and I wish Dr. Hilton was back here.
Matter of fact,
because-
she is. I think she just called back in. Dr. Ebony Hilton,
Yeah.
you wanted to pop back on. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to go and try to mind my business, but I just listened to see what the panelists had to say. And I just want to speak to the gentleman. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
You mean Faraji Muhammad?
Yes. For one, respectfully, words have power. And right now, what I am telling you is that words and the information that is being spoken, this misinformation, is literally killing our people. We have at this stage, compared to last year, January 2020, when before pandemic actually hit the United States in fullness, we had our first case January 20th. And since that time, 1 in every 420 Black people that were alive last January has now died from COVID-19. We have higher death rates in every single age category, including our children. This is not the time for us to go back and forth over talking points because we want to get our voices heard. Because at the end of the day, if you have not had to look at a family and tell them I'm sorry, but they are dead, then I don't need the back and forth, because what I got to tell you is we're burying 9-year-olds. 9. This has to stop. And it's one of those things that really does. If there was a miracle drug, I tell people all the time, I don't come from a medical family. I came from a single parent home. My parents didn't graduate from high school. I lived in the place that we talk about with the lack of resources. That's what I got, free lunch. That's me. So when I think about the fact that we're already having to battle the fact that we don't have medical resources in the neighborhood that I grew up, and I know my family is struggling to even get vaccines in the first place. Literally, they left South Carolina to go to North Carolina to get vaccinated because they weren't getting it out because we got a Republican governor. I already know the uphill battle we got to fight as far as racism, as it deals with environmental racism and the toxins being poured in our air and water. All that stuff I already know. And what I am telling you is that we have young people, young, otherwise healthy, nothing in my chart. I am 20 years old. And 2 weeks ago, I had to literally bury a 20, I'm not going to say the age and the sex of this person, but a person half my age from COVID-19. We cannot afford to do this, people. I mean, and what terrifies me is that we know that if we look at where Black people live, we live in the southern states. We live in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. 50% of all Black people, we live down south. And guess where the hot spots are right now, if not the complete south? And guess where the lack of vaccine uptake is happening? In the deep south. And guess where high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes live, if not in the deep south? So guess who's going to die at higher rates again? So instead of it being 1 in every 400, it'll be 1 in every 200, and it is killing us.
Yes, ma'am. And Dr. Hilton, this is not about talking points, and I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with you, sis, that, having those conversations with families to let them know that their child has lost the fight against COVID-19. This is not about to score any political points. But I think that we should have some deeper conversations. I mean, people are talking about the hesitancy. They're talking about not being adamant. I mean, looking at where this country is, we're looking at in terms of the medical experimentation, the history of medical experimentation on Black and brown communities in this country. We can't just disregard that scholarship and that research. We can't just disregard the fact that this vaccine was produced in such a way, and I could be wrong, Dr. Hilton. I can be totally wrong, and I'll be the first one to admit it. But I didn't see a consortium of Black medical professionals like yourself and others coming from both America, coming from Haiti, coming from Cuba, to discuss, okay, we know a company like Pfizer, a company like Moderna, a company like Johnson & Johnson, companies that have real problems in producing sound and effective and life-saving treatment. Let's see what other alternatives have been, can we look at? I don't know if those conversations happen. Please inform me. Let me know if those discussions were had where we can look at it specifically for Black and brown communities, that those conversations where we can look at what are some of the options outside of these medical corporations.
Wait, hold on. So you're asking, first of all, I can tell you, because we had them on, the National Medical Association, the folks at Meharry, the folks, they were very much involved in as a vaccine was being developed. Now, when you say other options, please, by all means, present the other options.
I think there are other options. Look at. We can look at South America. We can look at Mexico. We can look at Haiti. We can look at what's happening in Africa. When I looked at some of the numbers, Brother Roland, Dr. Hilton, when I looked at some of the numbers, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the global context, the United States has the highest number of COVID cases in the world.
Wait a minute, Faraji. I think, you know, just today, yesterday, Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is over the World Health Organization, called for a moratorium on booster shots in the global north until vaccines are delivered to Africa. 1%. You got people who will crawl through over broken glass to try to get a vaccine in Ghana, Nigeria, even South Africa. And in terms of Latin America, that's where we've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hilton, the Lambda strain is coming. As far as Cuba is concerned, that's geopolitics. United States and the global north freezing Cuba out. They developed 2 vaccines, the Ebola vaccine and the Soberana vaccine, both over 90% effective. And so far, they've begun to inoculate. I think they're close to 11 million in Cuba now, have taken 1 shot. But Dr. Hilton, help me, because again, and Roland, I'm glad you mentioned President of Meharry, James Hilder. You had him on before anybody. He's an epidemiologist. I mean, you know, Wayne Frederick at Howard, the sister who's president of Morehouse School of Medicine. You had them on over and over again, and you've kind of been the thread through all of it, Dr. Hilton. So something I heard on the show the other day, the brother from A&T who you had on, Roland, made this point. But Dr. Hilton, correct me if I'm wrong, the Delta Plus, the Lambda, I mean, I had Moderna. Number one, that doesn't make me immune to COVID. But in terms of the new variants, am I now, because of those, if I get one of those variants, am I more likely to be a carrier with a mild illness? And then because the new variant looks at, I mean, COVID is not racist. And the new variant, help me if I understand this correctly, because of the new variant, I am more likely to infect an uninfected person than maybe even before they had a vaccine. It's just going, this vaccine's not helping me against, we don't even know if it's going to help me against COVID for Lambda. And is that true? Is that correct?
Right, and it's one of these things. So let's define how variants come across. So it's almost, again, I don't come from a medical family, so I try to think in very simple terms of how I wish someone would explain it to me. So you can think about variants like the telephone game. If I say ABCD QRST, and then Reese says ABCD QRSTV, right? And then the next person says ABC QRLMN. That's the slight change where we keep the same base, but then it's slightly different in between. That's what mutants are. Because as COVID goes from me to Reese to Roland, the virus's only job and only goal is to be able to replicate. And it knows that if I can trick the immune system, then that's the most likely that I can get to the next generation of me. So I have to change slightly from me to Reese to Roland in order to get to the next generation, if that makes sense. And so when you're talking about the vaccine, what we do know is that the vaccine still recognizes fairly well that ABCD. Now, it does not necessarily recognize the QRS if you throw in some other letters, and I'm hoping this is making sense to people as far as this telephone game. But what we do see is that the vaccine itself reduces your likelihood of being hospitalized or infected by 8%, 8 times, right? 8 times less likely to be infected. You're 25 times less likely to be hospitalized and 25 times less likely to die if you are vaccinated versus if you're not. Now, do we have a real threat that we're going to get a telephone game of where now instead of it saying ABCD, that it says QRS first and throws us all the way off? Yes. And the reason why we have the biggest is, again, when we were just talking to the gentleman about vaccines and he mentioned Africa, I don't know, and I think you said you've never been to Africa. I've done mission trips in Africa, and I lived in Tanzania for a month and then for 2 weeks the following year in 2013. And I tell you, that one hospital was servicing in Tanzania, Mwanza, Tanzania, the entire country of Tanzania. There is not a resource there that we have the luxury of having here in the United States of America. So when we're saying they don't have cases, it's not because they don't have cases, it's because they don't have tests for those people. Literally, we had patients that would walk to the hospital for days that I can put up, you know, videos of what I took to show how these children who had infections within their belly, their families had to carry them for days to get to the hospital, and unfortunately they would pass away there. So we cannot say that they don't, and it's an injustice to Africa, the continent of Africa, actually, at this stage where 15% of the global population is vaccinated, but yet in Africa it's only 1.8% because they are not getting vaccines in the rate that the wealthiest countries are getting vaccines, and they are dying. And it's not only in Africa, it's in South America. Literally, when we're talking about the P1 variant, that was out of Brazil, right? We had the Alpha variant first in the UK. We had the South African variant, right? I don't know if y'all remember that one. And then we had the P1 variant, which was in Brazil. Yeah. This is not a game of, oh, well, we're only dying in the United States. We're testing more in the United States. We're not doing as many tests as we should be doing in the United States. And yes, we are able to count our deaths better because we have the medical resources that if you get sick because you don't want to get vaccinated right now for whatever reason, you can go into a hospital that's at least 20 minutes car ride from your home, right? That's not the same in every other location. And unfortunately, it's that type of not understanding the system holistically that's causing a lot of people to doubt the system, and unfortunately it's costing their lives, because what we do know again is that in the United States of America, 1 out of every 420 Black people has died from COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic, and it's only going to get worse. We are again estimating right now we have 100,000 cases being diagnosed a day. That's going to go between now and September the 1st, which is only 3 more weeks, up to 200,000 people we're estimating going to be diagnosed a day. And by October the 1st, we're going to be burying 4,000 people a day. And how many of those people are going to be Black people? And it doesn't have to be.
Dr. Hilton, excuse me. I'm interested to get your take on, you know, how do we have a conversation like this? And it's fine. I mean, you know, we can go back and forth. But I think that it's very important that we have a conversation like this from a space of really understanding that Black folks do not trust the medical industry of America. We don't trust the medical system, right? We understand that, you know, there are 2 books, and I'm sure Dr. Carr can go further on it. Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington, that talks about the dark history of medical experimentation on Black people, and Acres of Skin by Alan Hornblum, which deals with medical experimentation done largely on Black inmates. So when we had that history, I mean, how do we just put that to the side? Do we just say, no, it's not important because the numbers are for this is right now? Or do we just say, okay, let's figure out some other way to address this beyond a PR campaign?
No, and I think we do address the history. Again, I don't come from a medical family. The reason why I went into medicine is literally when I was 8 years old, my little sister asked my mom for a brother. I'm the middle of 3 girls. And at that time, my mom told me that my parents' first child was actually a little boy. She was in her 11th grade of high school. They got pregnant. She went to a clinic, and at 6 months pregnant, they did a test on her. She started leaking fluid. My brother was born within 2 days, and he only lived 3 days, and he passed away. That's the reason why I went into medicine, because I, at the age of 8, felt like I can possibly make a difference where another mother wouldn't have to cry because she has to bury her child. And so in growing up in medicine, I have definitely taken with everything that I am from that space. I am from that very neighborhood of where we were talking about Tuskegee, where we're talking about, you know, you're talking about actually with the acres of skin, that's the Philadelphia experiment, a prison experiment. All that stuff, literally, if you look at our website, I have a consulting firm called Good Stock Consulting. Literally, that's all we talk about day in and day out. And what we are saying is holding institutions accountable. If you look at things like Tuskegee, for instance, they were withholding medication from Black people that could have kept them alive. And in this stage of COVID-19, what I asked everyone clearly is, if it was an experiment that could possibly taint you or kill you, would you see the most powerful people in our nation, white people, the president of the United States? Would you see the Lindsey Grahams? Would you see the Mitch McConnells? All of them jumping in front of us, Black people, who should have been in the front of the line because we had racial health disparities. But we had Marco Rubio, we had Ted Cruz, we had the Fox News support, you know, people. They were the first ones on stage, so they could use it as a political stunt to say, oh, I'm just doing this to gain interest and to gain the support. No, they were doing it because they knew it could save their lives. And Lindsey Graham right now with his COVID positive self, if he did not have the vaccine, would likely be dead. That's the truth of what we're dealing with. So we have to look at this thing and take a step back and say, if it was this huge experiment, then would we be seeing people literally jump over you in order to get it? Because if y'all don't want it, I guarantee you there's people all around this globe, like in India, where they're burying 13,000 people a day because of the Delta variant, that would say, please give it to me because I don't want to die. And unfortunately, in the United States, between now and December the 31st, many people who are hearing my voice right now will not be here. And possibly even me, because when people are coming to the hospital, they are coughing in our face. I don't want to die either. And it's that selfishness of thought of, well, I don't want to put something in my body. But when you get sick, then all I ask for you to do is keep that same energy. Again, I'm not from a medical family. Take the white coat off. Keep that same energy then, and don't come into the hospital coughing in my face, because I want to go home to my family too.
That's
and
right.
I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna bring Reese in. Reese, Faraji talked about having a conversation. That's what we've literally done for the last 15, 16 months. This is precisely why I have put on Black medical experts. We know, based upon the research, Reese, Black people trust Black doctors than they do anybody else. So there was a reason why. Now, I get this whole deal about let's have the conversation, but this is the dilemma that we are in. We can talk about what has happened over the last 100, 200, 300 years, or we can talk about how we're going to enrich funeral home directors today.
Right. Here's what's so frustrating, because this is exactly what I have been screaming about, the way that disinformation has really infiltrated our communities. I think we need to challenge ourselves as Black people. Why is it that we can quote and we can cite Robert F. Kennedy, I don't know if it's the junior or the third, but a virulent anti-vaxxer who's targeting our communities with this, who's been targeting our communities with anti-vaccination rhetoric, and specifically the COVID anti-vaccination rhetoric. I mean, it's going so far as to hand out flyers. Why is it that there is trust put in that person as opposed to a doctor like Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton, who is telling us that? Why is it that we as Black people, I'm not all of us, and I'm not trying to dump on you, Faraji, but this is my frustration that I've seen in our community, where I've been screaming about this. And Dr. Ebony, you know that I've been saying this because you're talking about vaccine access. And I said, we have to talk about hesitancy as well. We have to talk about the way that there is a deterrence campaign infecting our community. And why is it that as Black people, we will believe a sensational lie from a white person who wants to do harm to us than the simple truth from Black people who are trying to protect us, who are trying to get the truth out there, who are trying to save our communities? And that that, and I'm not trying to criticize you, Faraji, because I don't think that it's you alone who was repeating some of these things. But when you quote the CHD and the Children's Health Defense, that's an anti-vax organization. That is an anti-vax organization by a white man who does not want what's best for our community.
Oh,
and
no. Don't get it twisted, Reese. No, don't get it twisted. It's not about choosing. Look, I trust, and of course, Dr. Hilton is not my personal doctor, but
right.
I trust her scholarship and her medical expertise. So it's not about that. This is a much larger conversation. So it's not like, oh, we're not listening to black doctors, but at the same time, black doctors have been used, and I'm saying historically, I'm not speaking of Dr. Hilton, but black doctors have been the face of white interest and white power in the medical industry.
See this, but that's making my point about the cynicism and skepticism towards black doctors. And all I'm saying is, why isn't there that same cynicism and skepticism towards anti-vaxxers like Robert F. Kennedy and the Children's Health
fine.
Defense?
We don't have to bring Robert F. Kennedy. You can agree with him or not.
But hold on. All I'm saying is, why is there not equal, if not more, skepticism and cynicism towards the people that are actually trying to harm our community, that are actually trying to make it so that 1 in 420 black people becomes 1 in 200 or 1 in 100? Why is there not the same level of scrutiny and cynicism towards those people? Those are the people who are actually trying to harm us. That's what I'm saying. If you want to be, if you want to be skeptical of anybody, I'm all for being critical. I'm all for getting the facts. I'm all for doing the research. But what I find as a trend, and it's not exclusive to COVID-19, it's in politics, it goes across the board, is there's data that is contrary to conventional wisdom, that is uncritically ingested, indoctrinated, and regurgitated, and then you have the actual facts on the other side, and the people that are trying to give the facts, people like Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton and a number of black experts, as Roland has had on the show, are the ones who are tools of the white agenda, and they're the PR campaign. The PR campaign is the Children's Health Defense Fund. That's not a medical organization. They're putting out flyers.
We already know that. That's an activist group. So it is what it is for them. But again, Reese, this is not about picking and choosing. This is looking at a pattern. This is looking at a system that has not been kind to black bodies.
Okay, all right, okay, fine. Just show me this then. Okay, fine, show me this. This is very simple. Please show me, and first of all, we know very well first of all, ain't nothing in America. There's not no system in America that has been kind to black people. We can apply that to real estate, Wall Street, I mean, every single system. We got that. Fine, show me this. Show me a black doctor who does not believe in the current 3 vaccines, who has come up with an alternative. Who?
A black doctor.
Yes.
See, that's
medical doctor.
The one doctor that said the alien sperm, he might mention her. I mean, it literally makes me think about.
No. Ebony, hold on. Faraji, I'm making a point because here's the piece.
Go ahead.
Show me. You mentioned other countries and what they're doing. God, show me a black doctor who has done that. Because you asked Ebony, hey, were there other doctors who came up with other avenues or methods that are alternatives to the vaccine? Okay, show me.
I'm asking the question, Roland.
No. And so the fact that you can ask that question, and I don't know, and Ebony don't know, and Greg don't know, and Reese don't know, and if they're there, fine, bring it out there. But the dilemma that we are faced with right now is this: it literally is life or death.
Right. I understand.
See, we could have the historical, larger, broader, deeper breakdown of the system. This is what I know right now. When my ass go fill up my gas, I better have some gloves on and some damn disinfectant, because the Delta variant might be on that gas pump. When I get on that plane, I am not thinking, let me be real clear. When I sit my ass on that plane tomorrow to fly to Charleston, South Carolina, Roland at that moment ain't thinking about Tuskegee. I'm not thinking about a jail. I'm thinking about goggles, mask, filter, gloves, wipe everything down, getting out of there. I'm not dismissing nothing that's happened to us historically, but I have to deal with the present of what's happening now, and that's why Dr. Robert Graves from North Carolina A&T has constantly been on here, and Ebony, and Tyson Bell, and when you had the presidents of Dillard and Xavier who participated in this COVID study. That's why we had the president of the National Medical Association, the largest group of black doctors in the country. That's why we've had these people on, because if we can't trust our black experts, well, hell, who left? Because I damn sure not going to listen to Robert F. Kennedy.
well,
and that's fine.
Faraji, and you remember this, brother, when HIV/AIDS was really slamming our people, and it's still slamming our people, as we'll talk about in a minute. But remember Dr. Barbara Justice, Abdul Ali Muhammad, and we're talking about alpha interferon and various. Now, let's set aside the science for a minute, because I agree with you 100% about the distrust of the system. And it isn't just historical. I mean, Dorothy Roberts up at University of Pennsylvania Law School wrote a book called Killing the Black Body. It isn't just Tuskegee. It isn't just Holmesburg Prison. It's our experiences in the doctor's office every day. And so I guess, you know, I'm thinking, how do we maybe steer into this? In other words, what you've described, Roland, in terms of how you're going to approach that plane. There are people who would say, but you're fully vaccinated, brother. You don't have, no. I'm going to absorb all of that experience-based paranoia of this system and protect myself. Because I remember, in fact, sitting and listening to Abdul Ali Muhammad and saying, yeah, you know what? There probably have been some breakthroughs. And of course, Big Pharma wouldn't let us know that. At the same time, to what you're raising, Roland, is very important. And Faraji, I know this, because I hear you, brother. And I embrace that energy in part because I went to, and Roland, you covered it. You sent your team to cover it. When the Tuskegee descendants of the people who were in the Tuskegee experiment came to Howard. Yep. I'm listening. I can hear it logically, but I understand class plays a role in our society, which means that there are black people who trust no petty bourgeois Negro. And especially when they're basically talking to black people like we're stupid. So in other words, y'all don't do this, you stupid. So immediately, part of the reaction is, I ain't gonna do it because I don't like how you talking to me. So why, Dr. Hilton, Doc, what you said at the end there, when you and Faraji were talking, that really hit me because, you know, my mother's sister's oldest child, my cousin, has been a nurse for almost 50 years. And she works in Baltimore sometimes, she's on the West Coast. But when you said, I want to go home to my family, I'm saying, see, that's the kind of talk. But see, you know how to talk like that because you didn't come from one of them petty bourgeois families. No, black people going to have to be talked to as if you're intelligent. And I know you don't trust them Negroes. In fact, the more degrees you got, the least you trust them. But when you say something like that, I'm thinking about my cousin. And I'm saying, if you go in the hospital in Baltimore and kill Jeanette, I'm coming for your ass today. In other words, I think that, Faraj, what I'm saying, that I think we have to learn how to listen to our people in a way that doesn't communicate we think we smarter than them. I think that's why our people don't trust politicians, don't trust many black doctors. And so I'm just saying all that to say that what you're voicing, a lot of our people, in fact, Roland, I will say this last, this is why Roland Martin and Filter is so important. Because there are people who are listening who are saying, you know what, I don't know if it's a doctor that created it now, but I don't trust these people. I'm saying you shouldn't trust none of them. Because if it was up to them, we'd all be dead. But guess what? You need to trust that they are against you, which means what? If they're taking it, to Doc's point, then you need to think about taking it. Why? Because the one thing about being free, you got to be alive to be free on top of the earth.
And that's why when Dr. Ebony Hilton and Dr. Tyson Bell, when they purposely, when they got the shot, they shot the video, They
Yes.
documented everything. Talk about that. Why y'all did that. Other black doctors did that because this is real simple. If Dr. Ebony, you ain't trying to sit here and put something in your body that's going to screw you up.
Right.
Right. And literally, I was the very first person at UVA to take the vaccine, and I wanted them to videotape it. And then I did YouTube videos of showing me the days after, because I don't come from a medical family. I completely understand where the mistrust comes from. And I wanted it to be one of those things of people could see by my example. I wouldn't do something to myself that could potentially kill myself. I mean, I love life. And I didn't feel that it would be right of anybody in the medical profession to ask someone else to do what they wouldn't do themselves. And so, like I said, I completely get it. I think, and I apologize if I came out as being kind of harsh and blunt, because it literally.
No, you ain't got to apologize. No, keep it real.
I do think, it's by the grace of God, my immediate family has not died. And I literally think about that all the time.
Same here.
So how do we get past this point of needing more and more data when the data is already there, and we're trying to find data that proves our how do you say it, that gives our anxiety a home. And at this point, every day that we are trying to find that home space for that anxiety, 600 people are dying from COVID. And it's going to find itself to your door just because the Delta variant is literally, the viral load of the Delta variant is 1,000 times higher than the original COVID. It is not something that you can just say, oh, I'll be okay. And even if you don't die, I have a mentee who is a young Black woman. She's in her mid-20s. She hasn't been able to taste or smell since January. And what does that mean when your brain no longer works in the same way? She is 26. What will her life look like when she's 40 or 50? Will she develop Alzheimer's at a younger age? We don't know. But we do know that that part of her brain is now scarred in some kind of way. That's scary. And you don't have to go through that. Wear your mask, get vaccinated. Don't go to Lollapalooza and things like that. It's not worth your life to have 48 hours of fun. We're just trying to get through this together. That's all.
All right, Dr.
Can I say one more?
Reese, go ahead, the final comment.
Okay, let me just talk to the audience right now. Here's the thing, my people. I understand the hesitancy. I understand the mistrust. What I want to warn you about is that there is a campaign to use that mistrust to further damage our community, our lives. They are playing on that mistrust. There's a campaign through foreign interference, through social media, through organizations like the Children's Health Defense Fund that mean us harm, that are utilizing our well-warranted mistrust to damage us even further. And so just at least keep that in mind when you're seeing some of this anti-vax information. It is your choice. It is your choice. But I will say, in terms of medical racism, Black women have the highest Black maternal mortality rate. We do have the benefit. I know many Black women that have decided to do home births, that have decided to get doulas. That isn't as much an option with COVID. I had a standard C-section in a hospital. There are alternatives to counter that medical racism. The government is telling us the only thing you get is the vaccine or a ventilator if you get the thing, or body bag. Good luck, bitches. So you make the decision whether you want to throw your lot in with the vitamins, with the disinformation, with your immune system being in perfect health, or if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a chance with the vaccine. It's up to you. But the government is saying that's it. The pandemic of the unvaccinated means if you don't get the vaccine, don't say shit to us. That's what the government is saying, and that's what the employers are saying. And so that's your choice to determine which side you're going to be on.
Dr. Ebony Hilton, I'm going to say thanks for a second time since you decided to come back on, watching the conversation. I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Y'all be safe.
All right, we're going to go to a break, and during this commercial break, we're going to show you, this is not all of the experts, but you're going to see, because I need y'all to see what we've been doing, okay? We have not, and this is no shade to anybody, we ain't been having Black entertainers on here talking about COVID, the vaccine, and your health. We ain't had no rappers, no ball players, no actors. No, we've had real experts on this issue. When we come back from this break, we're going to talk about the eviction moratorium and talk with a black real estate expert on what this means for African Americans. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Every single night. We've got some of the top black experts. You're not going to see them on cable news or broadcast news because you swear black people aren't experts when it comes to this health crisis. That's why we have this show and why we do what we do every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining us right now is retired General Russell Honore, the nation's first black Surgeon General, Dr. Joycelyn Elders. John Hope Bryant, he is the founder of Operation Hope. Senator Kamala Harris of California, Dr. Sadrina Calder, retired General Lloyd Austin, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Commissioner Omari Hardick, Bureau President in Brooklyn, Eric Adams, Dr. Joseph Graves, America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens, Dr. Corey Hebert, Patel Salt, Howard University student, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dr. Christy McDowell, BRAVEBOY, AJILORE, Senior Economist at the Center for American Progress, Yola Daniels, again, author of the book, The Crisis of Voter Suppression in America. 4 stars, General Kip Ward. Dr. Oliver Brooks is President of the National Medical Association, President of the American Medical Association, Dr. Patrice Harris. Joby Benjamin, Dr. Alexia Gaffney, Infectious Disease Specialist, Dr. Georges Benjamin, Executive Director of the American Public Health Association, Malcolm Nance, Family Medicine Physician, Dr. Jen Caudle, Dr. TSHAKA Cunningham, a molecular biologist, Kat Stafford. She's a national race and ethnicity reporter for the Associated Press. Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, who is the president of Howard University, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from the state of New York, William Spriggs, AFL-CIO economist, Andrea James, executive director of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. All right, let's go to Capitol Hill. Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congresswoman Eddie British Johnson of Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, mental health clinician Jamie Singletary, Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha BRAVEBOY, as well as Dylan Hayrie, ACLU Justice Division strategist. Dr. Cindy Duke, she is a virologist. Principal Steve Perry of Capitol Prep. Health and wellness specialist Dr. Yolandra Hancock. Desmond Meade, president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Michael Harriet with The Root. Domina McWhorter, founder of Love by the Hand. Dr. Julianne Malvo, economist, president, Emerita Bennett College. Coroner Michael Fowler is the mayor of Atlanta. Keisha Lance Bottoms, mental health therapist Suzette Clark. Justin Gibney, attorney and political strategist, and Bishop Vincent Matthews Jr. Dr. Suzette McKinney, CEO and executive director of the Illinois Medical District. Dr. Leon McDougall, president-elect of the National Medical Association. Jana Bailey, mayor of Moss Point, Mississippi, Mario King. We're going to keep driving this thing to make sure our people are fully aware, safe, protected from coronavirus. You're getting the top medical experts, the top business experts, top political experts, top religious experts, because that's why we do what we do. Unapologetically and unfiltered. Ain't nobody else in the black media space doing what we do. Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Seek.com is one of the partners with us here, Roland Martin Unfiltered. If you would like to take advantage of their headset, as well as their virtual reality headset, or their earphones right here. Of course, there's these amazing, the sound's also amazing, folks. 360-degree sound. The bass is tremendous. You can use that VIP code right there, RMVIP21, RMVIP21. Use that promo code, and then a portion of the proceeds comes back to us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. And so please, if you want to support Seek.com, and you can check out their virtual reality content through their site as well, CEE